our participants, I will just again sharing the introduction of Mr. Asim, that is the co-founder and chief technology officer of TekRevol, a US-based digital transformation company providing top-tier customer software development and consulting service to business and of all skills and industries. So thank you very much, Asim. Now you are visible as well. Thank you.
All right.
So yeah, that's great.
Cool.
So let's start the session. And we have around 100 people are already joined us for this webinar. The stage is for you. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction as well. And it is nice to being connected with the people of the same industry again. I think I know a few of people from corporate computing already. So it's been a great time to reconnect with everybody. And at the same time, yeah, it is going to be a good, decent start of the week just because we would be trying to learn something about the blockchain and NFT stuff. And apart from this, it is not going to be a one-sided presentation. So I would encourage everybody to like participate and whatever comes in their mind, they can openly discuss about that. So it is going to be a fun for sure. So just give me a second so that I can close other applications which are distracting me at the moment. All right, so let's start with the topic, and moving forward, we can discuss few different stuff as well. So the agenda of this particular webinar is about learning and understanding the blockchain technology, as well as I will be discussing few business applications. Then we can discuss something about the smart contracts, what exactly are those and how to build those and how do we use those contracts. And then a little bit of NFT technology and what kind of application it is bringing at the moment and what kind of opportunities which we have. So let's start with the blockchain. So the very first thing, of course, blockchain, it started with the blockchain was introduced. Bitcoin was when Bitcoin was introduced in early 2010 and 2009, when Satoshi Nakamoto actually wrote a paper and he actually brought up an application. So this is where actually all started. And whenever we talk about the blockchain, the first thing that comes in our mind is basically a Bitcoin. But just wanted to clarify, because it is like the misconception, and most of the time people confuse about the blockchain with the cryptocurrency. So Bitcoin or the cryptocurrency is not a blockchain. So what exactly the blockchain is? The cryptocurrencies are mostly the Bitcoin, Ethereum, some other kind of stuff. There are like hundreds of currencies available in the market right now, but the underlying technology is called the blockchain. So that's the main difference. So Bitcoin or every coin or every cryptocurrency is built on top of the blockchain. So I'm going to discuss more about the blockchain technology, not the cryptocurrency, just because it is a different side altogether, and I'm not really expert in the trading side and the crypto stuff, the NFT stuff. But yes, the technology is something that is really inspiring and where I have a little bit of knowledge, so which I would like to share through this webinar. So let's start with the very basic and what is blockchain? And I took this definition from the internet, and it is like an open distributed ledger that can record transaction between two parties efficiently and in a verifiable and permanent way. So this I like this definition the most, just because it has few very basic few elements which I think I can emphasize a lot, and we can that can help you to understand the blockchain in a better way. So that is why I just had designed to bold these three these three words: distributed ledger, transaction, and permanent way. So that will help us to understand the blockchain technology in more simple way. So first of all, transaction. So whenever we talk about transaction, so it is mostly we think about some sort of trading, some sort of bookkeeping, or anything that is related to the record keeping, whether it's a transaction with any shopkeeper, with any bank, or maybe with any kind of friend. So you normally perform these kind of transactions. So every transaction is basically the same which you actually experience in your real life. So take an example, if you have one a smartphone, and if you sell this smartphone to somebody else, then it is like the one transaction. So the same concept applies with the blockchain itself. Like whenever you do any kind of bookkeeping, any kind of record keeping, that is a transaction. So number two aspect, the number two contributor of this definition is the distributed ledger. So you already know about the ledger. It is like, again, from the real life example, it can be through any register, through any Excel file, or maybe a database. So it is like, again, the same kind of concept. So ledger is basically an Excel file or maybe a physical register. But when we talk about the distributed ledger, then it means this ledger is being distributed among the different people. And this is where the blockchain definition comes properly, where we actually define how, like, why it is distributed and why we are not talking about the centralized. And I will be discussing more about the transparency and centralized and decentralized later on in this presentation. And the third thing is about the permanent way. So like most of the time, again, take the same example from the real world, when you actually make a transaction, and like if you sold your phone to your friend, then it is a permanent transaction, and you cannot have it back unless you make another transaction, and that friend send you like make another transaction and sell you back that phone. So it is the same concept that is applied in the blockchain technology. Once the transaction happened, it cannot be changed. It cannot be reverted. It can be like only the new transaction can be added to the ledger and can be added to the blockchain database. So these are the three main components of any technology to understand, especially with the blockchain, distributed ledger, transaction, and permanent way. So again, the same concept which I just explained about the distributed ledger. So take an example of any bank at the moment. So there are like multiple ledgers, but bank hold the main golden or the main record of every transaction, everything that is happening around its ecosystem. But on the other hand side, if you talk about the distributed ledger, then there is no one ledger. Everybody has the same ledger, everybody has the same copy in this database and in this network, and they actually determine the true state of the ledger at any point of the time. So this means like every node in the distributed ledger network actually keeps the same copy, and they have their own mechanism to verify these transactions and the records so that everything is transparent, but there is no need for any centralized entity at the moment. So that's just the biggest difference between this technology and the previous technologies. So just to dig in further about, just because I know like a lot of the people are from that side are the technical people, and I would like to discuss and dive further into the technicalities of the blockchain and how actually it works. And I try to compile a presentation in a way that it should be more focusing towards the pictures, not really content. I know everybody is busy and everybody is tired of reading the very long content. But yes, when we start with the blockchain, the very first word is the block. So what exactly the block is? So block is basically a data container. It is very similar to the kind of Excel file or the Word file you normally store in your computer. So any text file, anything that actually holds the data, it is called the block. And in the blockchain, the block has three main components. And these three components, like the number one phase is basically the data, the actual data which you are trying to save. It can be a text, picture, diagram, video, or anything that can be stored on a blockchain. And number two parameter is basically the hash. And the number third parameter is basically the hash of previous block. So apart from the data, what exactly the hash is? So hash is basically a cryptographic algorithm which we normally use it to define the uniqueness of this block. So why do you use hash? Is basically define the uniqueness of this block on the blockchain, so that if somebody is trying to modify the data on the blockchain, so the data on the very top, if you actually change one character or anything with that, then the hash will be changed completely. And that is the beauty of the hash algorithm, that you cannot press it back, and at the same time you cannot decrypt it, and at the same time it actually helps you to define this blockchain. And the hash of previous blockchain is basically the concept of defining the changes, because when it actually becomes a series of blocks, then you will always have an instance or like the reference of the previous block. So hence the blockchain. So this is how the chain is developed. So this is about the blocks. So let me give you a little bit of more detail and insight, like how exactly the blockchain is being developed. So I just talked about the inside of the block, the one particular block that actually holds the data. Then there is a second block and third block. So whenever the new block is added to the blockchain, then it is always referenced to the previous hash. So take an example of the very first block where we have the hash, something cryptographically generated. Then previous hash, just because it's a very first block, then there is a concept of like Genesis block. So just ignore that part. But if you talk about the block 2, block 3, block 4, so you will see it like there is always a reference of the previous block hash. And this is how the chain is developed, and this is how the blockchain actually works. So little bit more about the process of mining, and little bit more about how the blockchain actually works and like why it takes so much time. So before like I'll come back to this slide later. Before that, let's see what exactly happens whenever the new transaction happens. So in case of the Bitcoin blockchain, when we talk about any new transaction happen, for example, if I send you some coins and then one transaction actually happened, so that new block actually added to the blockchain, and every participant of this blockchain actually verified that transaction, and only then it is added to the blockchain. So this is like the really normal concept, and this concept actually defines like the numerous factors. So number one thing is the consensus algorithm. So let's tell you more about what happens with the blockchain and what happens with, like most of you already know that there is no one blockchain. There are multiple blockchains. Bitcoin has their own blockchain. Ethereum has their own blockchain. And just to understand things more easier way, then I can take an example of the Bitcoin blockchain. And Bitcoin blockchain has one mechanism that is called proof of work. So that is basically a consensus mechanism that is actually defined to every node. So what happens is like, for example, one new transaction is added. So when you add the transaction, you just, every participant actually knows this algorithm, and they run actually this algorithm, and based on this algorithm, what they do, they actually define the proof of work. Okay, this has been proved, this has been defined already. And based on that, you can actually move forward and they can verify the transaction. Okay, the proof of work mechanism have been verified, and this block can be added to the blockchain. So coming back to this particular mining, so like you may have heard about the mining and the minting process, and again, talking about, let me just turn off the notifications. So number one thing is like process of mining. So when I talk about adding the new block, that is called a mining, but how this happens in the real world, or how it actually happens with the real world scenario, like how people are like adding the new transactions at the daily basis. So for example, you can just download a blockchain Bitcoin software on your computer, and you become a part of this process, and you can become a part of this network, and you can start like mining those new transactions. So it is like always a cryptographic algorithm, a puzzle which actually every node try to solve in a limited time, so that whoever solve this puzzle very first, they will be rewarded with some sort of percentage of the Bitcoin. So every node, every computer that is connected with this network is basically participating in the mining process. But when we talk about the security of the blockchain, and when we talk about how we keep it really secure, and we talk about a lot. So just because like just going back to the previous concept, when actually you rely more towards the bank to like store all that information, but in the normal city, if there isn't any centralized body, then you must have a concern about if my data, if my records are being kept on a different computer, then it can be a little bit insecure. But this is where I try to like give some more insight about how to keep it secure. So number one, I told you about the consensus algorithm. So this algorithm is unique for every blockchain. So Bitcoin uses proof of work. Some other blockchains use proof of stake, and there are a few more. We can discuss this later. But there are some more insights about the mining process. So for example, whenever the new block is added to the chain, it actually takes almost 10 minutes. So the like with the Bitcoin blockchain again, and why it takes 10 minutes to actually add a new block. It is on purpose, and it is on purpose that it makes the entire thing slow. So just take an example of the very second block over here, and like for example, some hacker or maybe somebody actually try to modify the data of this block. So what will happen next? As soon as he changes the data, or like if he tries to modify the data, of course his hash will be changed, and the third block will have a different hash. So there will be an alarm, there will be some sort of conflict occur during that mechanism, that the next block do not have the right hash for the previous block. So there is some kind of brokerage in the block, or maybe there is some thing wrong with the data. And at the same time, if for example, if this series of blocks basically contains hundreds of nodes, then you have to like change, like the hacker has to change or modify the hash of every block. So it's going to take a lot of time, just because you have to perform this cryptographic uh, processing all the time. And in the meantime, the next block will be added to the block in the middle. So that basically actually solves the problem, and it actually keeps it really secure that there is something wrong. So it never happens. That is why it is like considered very secure mechanism, because even somebody is trying to do it, it cannot do it, just because it will change the entire block series of blocks. So that is why the security is really important, and that is why the way they have introduced this mechanism is really helpful. So another important part about the blockchain is basically the P2P network. And I've already like give you some message about information about like why the centralized mechanism and the centralized entity is not encouraged, and why the P2P network is there, just because every participant can actually play a role and being a part of becoming a network, rather than just relying on the centralized entity. So this is how the blockchain is being secured: P2P network and the consensus algorithm. So these are the three main factors which I think blockchain is really useful, because it is distributed. Again, no central entity. Number one, it is immutable. Immutable means like you cannot change anything, you cannot revert the transaction, you cannot modify anything. And number three is everyone. So blockchain is for everyone. It is not something like it is like the proprietary, or it is like hold of one particular entity, but it like everybody from the world, anyone can just participate with the blockchain mining process or the transaction process. And I told you about the procedure already. So when I talked about the proof of work algorithm that actually been used by the Bitcoin, so we always know, and we have always seen a lot of pictures and the kind of mining rigs and the mining farms around it. So I took this picture from the internet. So like the biggest problem with the proof of work algorithm is basically it consumes enormous amount of energy, and it is heavy on resources. And why it is so much popular? Just because like these kind of farms, like the computer farms, where they are trying to solve this cryptographic algorithm, just because they want to earn that reward, and they are actually helping this blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, to be running in a more convenient manner. So that is why it is important to understand the other side of the mining process, like how the people are mining, how they are planting these kind of big farms on maybe it is on your on premises, or maybe you actually have some commercial space and you are trying to resolve this, just because of like solving one transaction actually earn you a lot of reward. but it is heavy on resources and it is always controversial, and there has been a lot of talk about this mechanism. But I just wanted to give you this picture, like why it is used. So there are multiple definition and there are multiple application and business use cases for the blockchain, but I just took few so that we can discuss in a very simplest manner, and at the same time, if you have anything to discuss, then we can have these questions later on. So just take an example from the food industry, and this is one of my favorite, just because when I was learning about the blockchain, that this example is really common with any course, with any kind of book, where whenever you try to learn more about the blockchain. So the food industry. So what happened? Just imagine, like if you want to track information about the food industry, like how these are harvested, how these are being handled, how these are being delivered to your doorstep, then this is where the businesses can really use the blockchain technology. So just take an example. I took this information from the internet again, that like around 500,000 of people die on the yearly basis just because of the foodborne disease. And this is just because partially because it takes too long to isolate the food that is causing harm. So how can we use it? So let me give you a little bit more insight. So just a very brief and a very basic open idea. So just imagine, like the kind of, like, for example, if you just purchase a piece of meat or the package of meat from any superstore right now, and you would like to know more, like where was it harvested, who has handled it, where has the food been, when was it sold, and was it kept at the right temperature. You have all these information, and based on that information, you can actually track a lot of information inside. Just because everything is like, if you are like storing and getting that information and storing on the blockchain, then it cannot be tampered. So you can always trace back to the original origin, where it was harvested, to the level of all the supply chain, and see how it has been delivered to you. So it resolves a lot of problems. So when we talk about this kind of born diseases, then there is a scenario, like, for example, if there is any contamination found in this particular meat, then you would like to trace it back, so that everybody from the same group, if they purchase something similar, then you can actually identify or notify them that this food has some sort of contamination, so you need to avoid and prevent it to use it. So that is how, like, I feel, and this is like really common example and already being used by the Walmart, and they worked really closely with the IBM technology, and they actually were able to trace the complete cycle of this blockchain entity in just 2 seconds. Otherwise, it would have like taken like a month or maybe a few weeks to actually identify how this has been delivered to you. So this is one of like the very common example. If we want to talk about few more example, then you may have heard about the speedometer. The car speedometer is like another good business example where like anybody can tamper the speedometer of the car, and you can actually sell it with a better price just because it gives the false information to the buyer that it's been run really, it did not cover like a lot of mileage. So yeah, you can just manipulate the information. But think about the blockchain-based or internet-based speedometer, which actually transfer all that information to the blockchain whenever things move forward. So there isn't any central body, there isn't anything that can actually hold it. And once you are writing that information on blockchain, then it cannot be tampered, it cannot be changed. So you can always have an authentic record of the speedometer. So there are like few more examples like this, but I just wanted to give you a few more information, but just because of the limited time, we can try to keep it limited. So this is just the same review of the blockchain, how it actually works. So number one, how the transaction is requested, then a block that represents the created transaction. Then the block is sent to every node in the network. Number four, nodes validate the transaction. Then the transaction is completed, the block is added to the existing blockchain. And the last step is nodes receive a reward for the proof of work. All right. So far, like we have learned about the blockchain technology and how it actually store the data and how information can be retrieved and how everything is transferred and how everything is being immutable at this stage. But if you think about, there is one lacking and there is like one side of the blockchain that is till now that everything is so static. You can just write and you can just retrieve the data, but nothing is happening. Even though with the previous example of the supply chain of the food industry, you actually analyze that it is not only the humans that are actually involved with the blockchain transaction, but there are some IoTs involved, there are some computer programs involved as well. But in terms of the proper use of the blockchain, then there is another thing like the concept that is called a smart contract, and that actually adds a value to the entire ecosystem and the concept of the blockchain, because it should not be static, it should be dynamic, and this part actually makes the blockchain dynamic. So it is a self-executing agreement where the terms and conditions are specified by the algorithm. So what exactly this means is, so if we want to like make all these transactions dynamic or based on some contracts, so just take the example from the real world. So whenever you sign a contract with anybody, like on your the bond paper, the notified paper, where you actually sign something against some kind of contract you are entering to, so there is always a contract and somebody actually modifying or like handling that entity, for example, some notary public or some that kind of stuff. So we can use smart contracts over here now, and smart contracts are basically a piece of software that actually resides on the blockchain. So what exactly this means is, so for example, if you pre-program something in a way that if the few conditions are met, then this contract should be executed automatically. Again, from the real world example, if you are like requested to be available in front of the notary public just to sign a contract between two parties, then you have to do it manually. But what about if these conditions are already written in a program? And if you sign the paper, you agreed the terms, and other entity actually signed the paper and other entity agreed as well, then this contract will be executed automatically. So this is where we actually get the most of the blockchain. So to understand this further, I think we can take few more example from the real world. So let's take example of the very basic concept of like starting up something. Just imagine like there are two co-founders, they want to get into the partnership and they want to start something from the very basic, and they have decided to like put some money in a main bank so that they can use it wisely with different phases of the business. And now they entered and they actually define a smart contract around it. So what smart contract contains the condition that if both parties actually agree, then only they can withdraw money from the bank. Otherwise, smart contract hold all that information, that money. So one party cannot just request and receive that amount just because it is programmed in a way that once both parties will accept the condition, then it will be executed and then it will allow a withdrawal. So that actually gives you more trust. At the same time, the conditions are being met properly. So this is the one example. And if I want to relate this to very common example, you must have heard about the Kickstarter or any crowdfunding platform like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and there are a few more. And what happens over there, like these platforms are really popular just because that actually helps you to raise a fund. So for example, if you are a product company and you have created a campaign to raise X amount of money, and all the people who are contributing, who are paying against that cause or the campaign, they actually both parties actually need to rely on the trust on the crowdfunding platform that is called the Kickstarter. So they actually hold the money and they actually wait for meeting the conditions. So for example, if you want to raise like $1 million, and if you were able to receive all from the bakers and the contributor, if the condition is met successfully, then that amount will be transferred to you so that you can start your with your concept, with your startup. But what if you were not able to raise those funds? Then this amount will be sent back to the bakers or the people who have contributed the money. So you technically do not need any crowdfunding platform, the Kickstarter, Indiegogo in the middle. So that's how a smart contract actually helps you want to automate things really easily. So the same concept, the definition, how a smart contract works: predefined contract terms and conditions are agreed by all counterparties. Events triggered, contract executed. Just like the event triggered, like you were successfully able to like raise the fund you were expecting. Then executive and value transfer, the smart contract is automatically executed based on the pre-agreed terms, and the settlement payout and other settlements is completed instantly and efficiently. So this is how a smart contract works. These are few basic examples. Of course, it has improved a lot with the recent technology, and people are now using a smart contract in various ways. But these were the very basic and the few small examples that can actually help you to know more about the technology and the concepts. So the third main part of this webinar is basically a discussion about the NFTs. And again, like, I'm not really an expert in the NFTs trading. I do not carry a lot of information about the NFT projects and which are like really popular nowadays. But again, this is the technology where I am more interested in, and this is what I would like to discuss about further. So just again, from the very basic, I know most of the people actually already know about the NFTs, but what is NFT and how NFTs are being minted and what is the actual value of the NFT. So we want to just discuss few part of these NFTs. So another manifestation, again, the one thing which I want to clarify, NFTs, again, it is not a blockchain. It is again another manifestation of blockchain. So like different application, the cryptocurrency is one example, another one manifestation of blockchain. Then NFT is another manifestation of blockchain. So NFTs are really can be really anything digital, such as drawing, music, or playing card in an online game. And what exactly the NFTs are? These are the non-fungible tokens, and that means that something that cannot be exchanged for another item because it is unique. That is called basically the non-fungible, which means like there is an example. You have two different painting in front of you. So one painting cannot be exchanged for another painting because both paintings are different. Both have the different attributes and characteristics. On the other hand side, when we talk about the fungible item, like just take an example of $1. $1 is equal to $1, or maybe one coin is equal to one coin. So these are exchangeable, but things which are unique in a nature, these are called NFTs. So I just took an example. I just wrote like it is very basic concept, and normally when you talk about this smart contract and NFT is basically whenever there is an NFT, you actually need to write a smart contract. So there are a few programming languages involved. So Solana, like Solidity is one example. It is the common language where you actually write a smart contract. But at the same time, you can write a smart contract with Python, Node, and some other programming languages as well. So whenever you write any smart contract, you actually deploy these smart contracts on the blockchains, and then that actually helps you to like mint the NFTs. We will discuss this further in the later phase. So coming back to the NFT, so whenever any transaction happens in the blockchain, so like what actually the NFT is defined. Actually, NFT just defines the ownership of anything that is digital. So for example, if you have any video, anything which you want to create an NFT, so that actually defines the uniqueness of that particular entity on the blockchain. So there is like really common question about, and when we talk about the digital, mostly like how will you differentiate? For example, there is one picture and somebody created that, and like digital copies can be created very easily. and everybody can claim that this is the, like I had the first copy, or maybe I own the original file. So with blockchain, with the NFT technology, it is like really easy. Whoever created the file first, if he created the NFT against that, then actually he keeps the main information. So regardless, you keep like create multiple copies of this NFT, you cannot actually identify, you cannot actually claim that you have the main owner of the original file, because the information is already written in the blockchain, and that can be verified very easily. So this is where the NFTs are really helpful to understand, and this is really where you actually define the ownership. So let's take an example of this picture, or like anything digital. Like I just created this JPEG on my computer, and I just created or mint an NFT out of this. So that NFT that represents the art contains a bit of information about it, such as a unique fingerprint of the file, a token name, and a symbol. You need to understand that these files can be or cannot be stored on, like I'm talking about the actual raw file, the JPEG or maybe MP4 file, that can be stored or cannot be stored on the database, but the information, again, the information about this file will be on the blockchain, and that actually define the uniqueness of the NFT through the fingerprint. How? So for example, if I minted this picture, this JPEG, and it is now available on blockchain, so like it created a unique fingerprint. I told you earlier about the hash processing and a hash algorithm. So there is always a unique code about this, and I gave it a name of the token, and there is a symbol. Now, this particular signature is basically identifying that you hold this NFT and you are the unique owner of this NFTs. So what will happen after the NFTs are being traded and being sold it to somebody else? That all information will be stored on the blockchain. And that is why this application came into the existence, and everybody talks about the NFT just because, well, like, why everybody would like pay like 100 Ethereum just because of like very stupid like monkey type pictures, or any illustration that actually does not make sense. But apart from that, I'll get into the detail further. But before that, if you created that unique piece and you want to own it completely, you want to write it on the blockchain, this is how you do it. And nobody can claim that after this. And with the blockchain, like again, if you created a token with that JPEG picture, then you actually created one block. And once you actually trade that NFT, you sold it to somebody else against 1 Ethereum. Then this is how the user X will transfer to the user Y, and all that like every selling process is one transaction, and every transaction is being written on the blockchain. So you are like carrying all that information, and that is why I said it is open, it is transparent. You can go to the Etherscan or some other tools like that, where you actually go onto the blockchain website and you can actually verify those transactions. Who created the transaction, who actually sold it to the next party, So like whenever it exchanged hands, the information is written on the blockchain. So that is how it keeps that uniqueness throughout the process or the validity of the NFT. So very common example, Jack Dorsey. We all know about him, like the ex-CEO of the Twitter. He wrote his first tweet in 2006, and he sold that tweet. He created an NFT of this tweet, and he sold that tweet with $3 million. So there is a question about it, like why would somebody actually pay $3 million for this kind of like a stupid thing? Maybe why would we like to keep it? But it is not something that actually defines by the creator. It is not something that actually platform actually encourages to go with this. It is all about the status symbol, and it is all about the people who are willing to pay that amount. So the next guy who actually bought this NFT, he actually was willing to pay around $3 million to keep that information. So now he owns this NFT and he can claim at any time. So it is all about the demand of the NFT. It is all about the people who would like to keep it as a collectible, or maybe as a status symbol sometime. Just take an example from the real world. Like, why would you like to wear a Nike, or why would like to wear like own the Rolex watch? Just because it's a status symbol, just because you want to show it to the people. So same concept actually applies to the NFTs. But things have changed. Things have like improvised a lot. The NFTs are now recognized with the utility of their project. So I'll discuss this more about, but this is how the NFTs actually work. And this is like, these are so valuable. At the same time, like, why is so much hype about the NFTs? So getting into the the last part of my presentation, when we talk about NFTs trading, you may have heard about people are doing it through some airdrop project. They are trading through the OpenSea and some third-party platform as well, where you can create one NFT and then you can sell it, and somebody can sell it to somebody else. And the way it actually works in a real world. But what happens on the backend side, and especially for the technical people who need to understand like what happens exactly. So it is called a minting process. And to understand it, it is very simple. Anything that is digital, that is in your computer or maybe somewhere located, if you want to put this on blockchain, it is called a minting process. So what happens is, for example, if you have one JPEG picture, again, you just browse that picture and you write a smart contract, and a smart contract takes care of putting or like taking that digital file from your local computer to the blockchain. This process is called the minting process. So smart contracts takes care of all that stuff, like keeping that information about the blockchain, all the related data information, or maybe storing that information somewhere in IPFS or some other P2P network. So smart contracts take care of everything. So whenever you hear about the minting process, this is basically the mechanism that is happening on the backend side. So one last thing about the NFTs and like owning the NFTs, like NFTs can be designed and NFTs can be programmed in a way through the smart contract where you can actually define the royalty or sometimes the copyrights information as well. So there is a difference between the creator and the owner. The creator is someone who actually created the very first picture and he sold it to somebody else. So somebody else is now the custodian. He owns the ownership of that NFT, but the person who created an NFT, he may keep some information of the copywriting and he can create more copies of that. But it is not against the concept. Or maybe the smart contract was designed in a way that whenever the new sales happens, or like whenever the NFT is traded to third person, the fourth person, the fifth person, our royalty will be given to the creator. Just like in the music industry and just like in some other industries as well. So if you want to really back the artist or any similar kind of industry, then you can define these kind of conditions so that if the music is being sold to next person to the next person to the next person, the original creator will always get some sort of royalty against that. So that actually helps you to encourage or like support that particular domain or space. So I think there is a lot to discuss about the blockchain, and there are a lot of applications. There is a lot of potential to use blockchain throughout the industry, throughout the different industries, and you can apply with your projects as well, some applications as well. But these are the few industries which I think can be used. I have given few examples already, but just think about insurance claim, just think about the P2P lending, some loyalty programs, and we have been seeing a lot of NFT projects are being introduced in the market. Few giants, few enterprises are now coming up with their project through their loyalty program. Some airlines actually introduced NFTs for their ticketing mechanism as well, just to enhance the overall adaptability, at the same time giving more leverage to the users. Before that, you cannot actually, once you get it, for example, just I was reading somewhere about the recent introduction of NFT based air tickets. So before that, you cannot actually transfer that ticket to somebody else. Before that, you cannot have more information about this. Just think about like if NFT is available, and if you were lucky enough to like got the window seat, then you can actually transfer the ownership to somebody else. So that kind of applications are like really evolving, and things are like being more very improved at this stage. So things are getting really exciting at the moment. So decentralized is the backbone of the entire concept of the blockchain, NFT, and everything. So just because you are not holding anything on one place, it is through the nodes, it is through the people. So the last piece is basically the digital wallet. It is not something very important about from the technology perspective, but digital wallets are like very similar to what we carry within our pockets, like the wallets where you actually keep all that information. So digital wallets are the same concept where you actually can store your digital currencies, your like information about the NFT. So that kind of like the temporary hold where you have all that financial stuff and you can just put it over there. So like everything things should be safe, and you are not actually relying on any third party, or you are not relying or like putting anything with the centralized entity. So I told you about the NFT minting process already, and this is where I can conclude my presentation. And I think it should be useful for everybody. And I try to keep it very simple and very basic, so that because it is the main problem. And I had the similar kind of tech talk in my company as well, just because I always get these kind of very basic and the lame question, like how NFTs work, or what are the NFTs, what is the difference between the cryptocurrency and the NFTs, even the blockchain technology. So I am like really an advocate of the technology itself, but not really into the NFTs and the cryptocurrencies. I do not get a lot of time about the trading. But yes, with the Q&A, I will try to answer as much the information I hold.
So first of all, really thank you to Asim Rais for this awesome presentation. And I must say I had some concepts regarding the blockchain and NFT in my undergraduate program. But now you have made it very clear and easy to understand. So we are heading towards a question answer session. We do have some questions, and some participants have also sent me some questions in a private mode. So firstly, I would like to start with a question of Afan Alam. Firstly, thank you, Afan, for your question. So the question is, hi Asim, can you provide any example of the distributed ledger, please?
Yeah, sure. Like as I explained in the presentation already, and I covered one distributed ledger example of the banks. So just take an example. Whenever you make any transaction, then actually it is your Standard Chartered or the Mizan Bank who actually keep all that information. And just imagine if they just lose track of your transaction, then it will be real disaster. So take from this perspective. So if your information, if that ledger is again distributed among multiple nodes, and if one node actually goes down, your information is always there with second node or the third node. So just take an example, if the bank goes down, or if there is a disaster, then there is a fair chance that you will lose your distributed ledger completely, or maybe the service go down to some time, and where something really important was supposed to happen, you need to make some funds transfer to your relative, some supporting stuff. So this is one of the distributed ledger example where you can distribute your ledger with the multiple people, and they can take care of that.
Thank you very much. I hope this answers the question. Then moving forward, we do have another question by someone who wants to keep himself or herself anonymous. The question is, who owns blockchain and what they are gaining from it? And also there is another question from this person. What cryptographic algorithms are they solving and purpose of it?
All right. So again, I think I try to cover it with my presentation. And first of all, the blockchains, like I told you, there are multiple blockchains. So Bitcoin has their own blockchain, Ethereum has their own blockchain, Solana has their own blockchain. So these are like the open, like for example, take an example of the Ethereum. So it is an open source blockchain. So everybody can participate. So like anybody from the real world actually can be a part of this blockchain. So nobody actually owns it completely. So there isn't any central body. Like this is the main difference between the centralized and the decentralized concept, because nobody hold it. Nobody actually like becomes the custodian of that, and nobody actually being responsible for any kind of transaction happening. So blockchain is open for everybody. So it is basically a decentralized. Again, the word decentralized, it actually like gives you the complete answer. Then about the cryptographic algorithm, like I told you about one of the mechanism of the proof of work, which actually Bitcoin blockchain uses. The proof of work is another, like there is a proof of stake, like there are a few more examples. So it is basically a cryptographic algorithm that was designed, because just when you actually design a blockchain, then of course you need to define some sort of characteristic about what sort of, like, again, take an example of the computer program that you are defining some cryptographic algorithms around it to like the way the blockchain will function and the way it will be giving an opportunity for the nodes to actually resolve these transactions and compute these transactions, because this is the task which actually nodes or any computer that is connected to the network to perform. So this algorithm actually creates and build those tasks through the cryptographic algorithm. So there isn't any specific, for my knowledge, there isn't any one is cryptographic algorithm involved. There is some improvisation. So we cannot say that it is like AES or the DES or some other cryptographic algorithm, but there will be an improvisation and there will be some more insights of that. So I do not have the complete knowledge, but I'm sure it is not the very generic algorithm which we have studied in our academics.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I would like to ask Asim that would you have enough time for the next questions? Would you really have 15%? As I have got a long list of questions.
Sorry, come again?
Can you please share if you have enough time for next 15 to 20 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
I think 15 minutes will be good for, as I have got a big list of questions now.
Yeah, sure. So, I think I can. Yeah, I have 10 minutes more.
So nice of you. So nice of you. So starting with another question that is from Zainul Abidin. He has asked, what is the difference between proof of work and proof of stake?
Yes. So like we said, the proof of work is the same concept that is being used by the block, basically the Bitcoin. And I give you the example of the same concept, like where like the multiple nodes actually get involved. So for example, whenever there is a new block request is being made, then every node actually try to solve that cryptographic algorithm, that puzzle. And based on like whoever actually resolved this puzzle fastly in a quicker manner, then that guy will be rewarded some piece of that Bitcoin, maybe 0.002 percent of like Bitcoin to the person who actually resolved this cryptographic problem. So this is the kind of concept that this is called proof of work, where actually everybody is trying to prove that. And once that is proved, then it is added and it is sent to all the nodes so that they can verify, and then they can add this to the block. But if you understand this entire process, then just imagine if like there are 1,000 computers associated and trying to solve the same problem, then you can understand the kind of energy you are consuming to solve this problem. And that is the only drawback of this proof of work concept. And that is why there are a few more concepts like proof of stake, where they do not actually ask. So I think proof of stake is the consensus algorithm for the Solana, maybe, or if I'm not mistaken, otherwise it is some other cryptocurrency. So what they actually do, they have the different style of verifying those transactions, and they do not actually ask everybody to verify or solve that transaction on immediately. So they have a different concept. They actually verify sometime, and they actually give one piece or one transaction to the one particular node, not to everything. This is what I know. I do not know the complete insight about the proof of stake, but this is what I learned like sometimes back, that like the way proof of work, it goes against, and it actually define one problem to one node, and then actually define or like give another problem to second node, so that there won't be any consumption of the energy, and at the same time, not everybody will be doing the same thing.
Nice. Thank you again, Asim. Here is another question from Muhammad Yusuf Kamal. Hi, Asim. Will you please tell me how does crypto mining work? I think you have already briefed upon it.
What exactly? Sorry, come again.
The question is, will you please tell me how does crypto mining work? I think you have already briefed upon it, so yes, I can go ahead with another one.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is another question which I think is very good. How to align and boost the blockchain and NFT community in Pakistan?
All right. So again, there are a lot of business application, the government application as well, and some like again, it goes with the adoption of the technology, and the things that the way things works in Pakistan, and mostly we are not really flexible with the new technologies every time unless it takes some time. So and I have heard like few examples, and I saw on the social media like people really confuse blockchain with crypto again, and they actually see it's like really ice cream where you can make money really quickly. But if we talk about the blockchain stuff, it is really helps you to like streamline a lot of government institution and their procedures and their processes. For example, I give you an example of the speedometer. So like whenever you need to verify some sort of information, you have to go to the civic center and you need to verify all that information. So what about like putting this on blockchain, and you can verify that information right from your computer, and you don't need to go anywhere, and it is like very authentic at the same time. Same goes with the like medical institution and like medical space as well. So you can carry a lot of information about the personal history. Of course, that is sensitive information, but you can keep it in a secure way, and it can actually help solve a lot of problems. So, for example, if there is a long history of any disease, and the person is like, for example, he has some heart disease, and he's been suffering from the last 20 years, and he has moved to the different hospital and has seen different doctors as well. So there is a long history, and you cannot keep all that information in one bundle, in one package. But just imagine putting this on a blockchain. So a lot of information can be resolved very easily. And then a smart contracts problems, I told you, it can be executed automatically, and you can create a lot like decentralized automation. Like DAOs are really common nowadays in America and the rest of the part of the world. Like if you need to build a company around it, you actually do not need to go anybody. You just create a decentralized autonomous organization, and everybody can participate. And you can define a rule around it, and an organization will be created decentralized, and you don't need any third-party entity. So these kind of few examples are there, and I'm sure you guys have more brain, and you can like think about a lot of different application, but it can be used anywhere for sure.
Thank you. So I think we can have another question, which can be the last one. And that question is, what are the challenges and risks associated with NFTs?
So again, I'm not an advisor with the NFTs, and I'm not really into the NFTs. But again, the technology wise, I think it has really good potential about the utility of the application. So like, let me just clarify one more time. So I'm not advocating on that. I'm not giving you instruction to go to the board apps and try to like buy one NFT and sell it to some money on top of that. I do not know about it more, but yeah, I have gone through the entire process just to learn from this perspective. I have been a part of few NFT projects as well, and there is like whenever you come up with the idea, it actually been backed with a strong utility, like how these NFTs will be used. So just take an example. There will be a lot of gamers, I'm sure. Like there is a concept of play to earn concept. Like when you play a game free, you actually get some tokens around it, and based on that, you can hold some sort of NFT. And whenever there will be a new version of the game, then you can use that NFT to like get some additional powers or something like that. And same goes with like some enterprises like Nike, Samsung, and some other enterprises are now bringing in these NFTs. And I gave you another example of. I gave you the one example of the airline. So this is the utility of the NFT. It is not about the picture. It is not about the cartoonic picture or any video or something that actually holds a value. It is the value of the utility, like how it can be used. And this is where the companies are becoming more intelligent with the concept. So like if you define a good utility of the NFT, then this project has a potential. If you see the utility can be defined and it can be understood properly, then you can call it that project is a good NFT project. So this is how I see the NFTs, but everybody has a different way of understanding things. And I'm sure there will be a lot of people who have more knowledge about it. But this is how I see the NFTs, and I normally see the project and the utility around it. And based on that, I can decide, okay, this project has a potential and this project does not have a potential.
Thank you, Asim. I think we have a lot of questions left. So what I can do is I can document it and email to you, and you can ask them later any other day. And
Sure.
in the end, I have two announcements to make. One is that I have shared a feed forward form in the chat box, so you can please fill out that form and let us know about the session and what betterments can we make. Second, we have Mohammad Farhan joined in this session. He is currently leading People and Culture Department as he is VP of this department. So, Farhan bhai, you are here. Over to you.
So thank you very much, Asim. It's been a pleasure to listening to you, and I think this topic is it's a hot topic as we have like around 100 people are joining us from not only in Pakistan but our offices from Mexico and US, and too many questions. So what I request you, even I have a question which I share with
Sure.
Ali that how blockchain can be utilized at workplace, because at workplace people matter most than everything else. So I'm pretty curious about the blockchain application at the workplaces. So maybe what we can do is write down all the questions. We have around 15 to 20 questions, and you can just refer us, like just sharing your thoughts on a document, and we'll share with the participant later on. And maybe we could request to invite you for only a Q&A session. The whole Q&A session could be one as well.
I would love to. I would love to. Like
once again, on behalf of Cooperative Computing.
Sure, good.
Yeah. So on behalf of Cooperative Computing, thank you very much for your time. And we just started this initiative of webinars of Insights Edge is the name. Like people are sharing with expertise, sharing some insights about something which they know very well. And that's we designed for our participant. And I hope we started very well with this topic and with your insights which you have shared with us. And thank you on the behalf of company. And yes, we are going to send you some a thank you note from us, a souvenir and a certificate from our side. And we'll have connected with you as well, physically as well. Later on, inshallah, invited you. And thank you very much. And that's the end of